Hello, I'm Brian Fenley, and welcome to a brand new edition of our SVG Hazelton Betty Ford series, Families in Recovery. Today's topic, virtual recovery, who's it for? And we are so pleased to be joined by two experts in the field. For 23 years until recently, Jerry Moe has been globally known as the National Director of the Children's Program at Betty Ford, and Carrie Bates, three-time Olympic gold medalist in swimming, currently the Senior Outreach Manager at Hazelton Betty Ford. Carrie is also a Betty Ford alum. Jerry, I want to start with you. We know addiction is a family disease. So, how are virtual programs targeted for the entire family?
Well, let's start with a virtual family program. It's a really great beginning. There's lectures, educational videos, stories, meditative exercises, discussions, and peer support. Topics include talking about the disease of addiction, communication, boundaries, the 12 steps, spirituality, and detaching from love. These are programs open to all people. And in a virtual family program, you'll find participants whose loved one is active in his or her disease, other participants who have a loved one that's in treatment, and still other participants whose families are in long-term recovery. Recently at the Betty Ford Center, there was a gentleman, long-term recovery, and he was having difficulty with his son. I sent him to the virtual family program, which was a great recharge for him, especially during the pandemics. But Carrie, it's not just all about families.
That's right, Jerry. When Hazel and Betty Ford launched virtual outpatient treatment, our goal was to mimic as close as possible the patient experience that they were receiving face to face in our brick and mortar sites. And based on the feedback that we're hearing from our patients and the outcomes that we're seeing 2.5 years later, I think we're accomplishing that. For the patients, we're offering programming anywhere from 4 days a week, 6 hours a day, all the way down to 1 day a week, 1 hour a day. And that's in order to keep everyone engaged for as long as they need for treatment purposes.
And then there's also the children's program virtually. Hey, when the pandemic hit and we needed to cease all in-person services with boys and girls, and the idea of virtual came up, got to be honest, I was incredibly skeptical. I spent 40 years doing in-person programs. How in the world is this going to work? And not only have I been surprised, but I've really been amazed. So in the children's virtual program, there's stories and artwork, a focus on feelings and self-care, and having fun. Let's let little kids be little kids. The anchor of the program is a series of books that I've written about a character named Beamer. Beamer is 10 years old. Both of Beamer's parents are trapped by addiction. Now, mom asks for help and goes to treatment, so we follow that storyline. But dad continues to believe he doesn't have a problem, and we see all the difficulties that result with his continued use of alcohol and drugs. The children's virtual program is open to all boys and girls who come from families that have been hurt by addiction. It's 2 days, 3 hours each day, typically on a Saturday and Sunday, so boys and girls aren't missing school.
Oftentimes, when patients complete their outpatient treatment with Hazeldon Betty Ford, they think their time with us is over. And that's just not true. What we're offering for all of our patients leaving our system of care is what we're calling the Connections Program. And that's a phone-based coaching and treatment process that patients can utilize to not only help prevent relapse, but also for additional accountability in that very sensitive early recovery period of time.
And Jerry, that holds true for the complete family, right?
There's the Connection Program for families, and there's continuing care for kids. At Hazelden Betty Ford, we want to meet individuals and their families and work with them in a long-term kind of way, from treatment to recovery to health and to wellness. And again, I am so amazed at some of the healing that takes place in virtual programs. There was a graduation, the last 10 minutes of a children's program. We invite parents and grandparents and caregivers to watch their boys and girls or their grandkids finish up that first phase of virtual children's programming. And there was a 9-year-old there. It just so happened that mom was in treatment at the Betty Ford Center. And boy, was she initially opposed to all of this. No, I don't want my 9-year-old in a program, and especially not a virtual program. But then she relented. And as the little guy got his certificate, there's mom on her laptop participating in this virtual space. And that little boy says, Mom, I love you and I'm proud of you. Now I understand. We can do this together. And there's mom wiping the tears from her eyes and looks at her 9-year-old son, just full of hope and love, and says, Yes, we can. And that speaks to the magic that happens at Hazeldon Betty Ford, not only in our in person services, but in our virtual programs too.
Beautifully said, Jerry. And many thanks, guys, for taking the time to be with us today. And stay tuned, as they say, for much more in the coming weeks from SVG Hazelton Betty Ford on this important subject.